What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel. I haven't uploaded a video for a very long time and I apologize for that. However, I have a brand new video for you and I really think you're gonna like the topic. I'm going to talk about my top 5 best decisions that I made in regards to personal finance. And since we're approaching this festive season when we are all rethinking about what we have done throughout the past year and we're also planning the next year, I thought this is a very interesting topic that you might reflect on and maybe plan your next year to be much more successful than this one. I recommend using the SMART goals when you do your list for the new year resolution, basically reflecting on anything that you want to achieve in terms of health, finance, personal wealth, spiritual goals, and more like that. But to make it more straightforward and easy to use, I usually start by looking at my business or professional growth, and then I list a couple of items that I want to achieve or anything that I want to learn new in this segment. Then I look at personal development, where I want to take some new courses or learn a new language, for example. The third would be relationships and looking at anything you want to improve in that aspect. Then it goes health and spiritual, which means basically looking at donations or helping people in need for the next year. And finally, I have a really interesting section which is called wealth. And how I do it exactly, I'm looking at very specific targets that I have for the next year. So I'm planning my say profit per year or per month or anything that I want to achieve, double that or at least increase by a couple of percents. Also looking in this section for new income streams. So for example, YouTube, I really want to monetize YouTube in the future, and that's going to be another goal in the wealth section. This video is not about that, it's actually looking at my best financial decisions that I've ever made and changed my life forever. So I will start first by looking at the number one personal finance decision that I made: to live below your means. At least do that in your first 3 to 5 years when you're actually targeting to save more money and build your wealth rather than spending on flashy stuff, cars, and anything that is not bringing you profits. What do I mean by that? Is basically spending less money than you actually earn, and by less I mean spending maximum 10 to 20% of your income on any other things than your basic needs. To avoid spending too much money on things that you can actually save on, I recommend living and splitting your rent costs with your friends or family. Of course, use public transport and not invest in a car, at least in your first years if you don't need it, especially because the car is only going to bring you more costs in the long run, so it's never a win investment for you. And yeah, that's of course if you're not into cars and you want to upgrade it and then resell it for more expensive. But usually that brings you more costs than returns. So in the first 3 years, just use public transport. So even if you like buying new things and you have a passion for something specific, if you do some sports and you want, for example, a new tennis racket or a new skateboard, it's always going to be tempting to do that. However, I just try to look more into like long-term things. So for me personally, I love snowboarding, and I was building my snowboard in parts. Every single year I was adding something new until I built a really good snowboard pack, and I'm not spending too much money long-term because I'm not renting anything from the other people. Yet the important thing here is that I built this snowboard package throughout a couple of years. I didn't really spend straight away, even if I had the money, because I knew it's just not the right thing and not the right moment to do so. We're always tempted by, especially festive seasons, to buy new stuff, to buy new laptops, computers, PlayStation 5, which recently came out. However, if you're in your first years of earning real money, then I would go into my second financial decision and tell you that the most important thing here is to save as much as you can. Although I know that currently I'm not saving as much as I can, and I could be doing much more in that aspect, in my first 3 years I was actually saving a lot of my income. I didn't go out as much and I didn't go to fancy restaurants as much as I do now, for example. So I was saving a very big part of my income, and I was just trying to live a better life by buying more things in bulk, going out or splitting the rent costs with my friends. And there was only one thing that I was spoiling myself with, which is traveling. I really traveled a lot, and every time I was trying to save some money, I was setting aside just a little sum for traveling. For me personally, traveling inspires me and actually drives me to do more things and improve myself, develop my personality. So I didn't really look at that as spending money. I was looking at that as a kind of investment into my personal development. Now let's talk about how I actually saved my money. Did I invest in something, or did I buy stock or something that would bring me more return in the long term? Well, the simple answer is no at the beginning. However, after a couple of months, I realized that keeping your money in the bank doesn't bring you much of a return. So I started looking into various investments and opportunities to at least get some more interest than the 0.0 something that the banks offer you nowadays. I looked at investment funds such as Vanguard or BlackRock, where you can invest a sum of money and the actual qualified investors will diversify the portfolio for you, and they will invest in the various companies and industries and bring you an average of 8 to 10% return per year. Then I also invested in a couple of startups. Some of the most recent and most famous ones were Revolut and Monzo, which brought more interest and return on my initial investment. And finally, a little sum of money, I was keeping it for myself and in my bank account. And the second part, I was trying to save more for my first property. Before we talk about real estate, which is of course one of my 5 best financial decisions to ever make, I will first talk about changing companies if you are full-time working and if you're employed. Because for me personally, this is something that I did, and it actually brought me more income and more career development opportunities. So it's something that I consider it to be one of my top 5 financial decisions. So changing companies, what do I mean by that? I mean that if you start working at one corporation and you've been there for at least 2 to 3 years, then you understand that you're becoming a professional in a field, and you do understand how this world works, you do understand what you're doing at your job, then this is actually the time not to accept the next role, but to move on to a different company. And why is that? It's actually because if you move to a different company, you're probably maximizing the chances that your income is going to be raised by 2, 3 to even 5 times, just because they get a already grown professional with some experience in the field that they are looking for, and you're bringing more things to the table comparing to the internal people that already know the systems. And although that's a big plus, they don't know how other companies are doing, and you're going to shine between the other ones. And at the end of the day, if you change the role, you're probably gonna get a higher salary, and you can always return back. And if you return back with more experience from a different company, and you also worked at that initial company in the beginning, then you're going to be valued much higher than the people who stayed in the same company and then move around. This phenomenon is very popular in IT companies and finance. And it's happening more and more often nowadays because we have the quarantine and we also have the work from home schedule. So many people are just switching careers and switching jobs every single month or even week. So that's something that's going to be more popular, and I really highly recommend you start doing it now because you're going to see more benefits in the future. Now the fourth one is going to be invest in real estate, and that's definitely one of my top financial decisions and the one that brought me the highest returns. If you want to know more about how I invest in real estate and what kind of opportunities I'm looking at, you have the other videos that I've posted recently on the best things to look at when investing in real estate. So I highly recommend watching that video, and I'll leave a link in the description below. Generally, to tell you what is that like, it's saving on your rent and investing for yourself rather than paying for someone else. This is the first step that saved me a lot of money, and that's why I've placed it in the top 5 financial decisions. And then if you want to build up on the real estate portfolio, you can already start looking at investing for business, or in UK it's going to be buy to let, and then a whole lot of opportunities opens up for you. You can do Airbnb, you can do booking, you can do buy to let and then resell the house when it's built. You can do various things, and they all are going to be more or less profitable in the end. It just takes a bit more time and initial investment for that. Finally, to wrap up this conversation, the 5th one, best financial decision that I've ever made, it's actually a combination of everything that I've just mentioned previously, and it's going to be diversify your investments. By diversifying your investments, you decrease your risks that you're going to lose into one field or the other. So imagine if you have all your investments into a property and you have the quarantine, no one's going to buy it. It's also winter, so it's the lowest season. You're going to panic and probably have not as good financial decisions at the end of the day, because you might just sell it for a much lower value that it actually is worth it. Having more investments into different fields that are non-related is the best solution that you can have in this case. Of course, you can start with small things. You can diversify first your property portfolio or anything that you're currently investing in. And then if you have some spare time or spare cash to look at completely different opportunities that you've never even thought about previously, then you can look around and just try to diversify into either stocks or even a new business opportunity that is completely different to your main income stream. This is going to be very helpful for you in the long term. Say if you're having a hotel and it's very seasonal, sometimes you might earn more money, and in the other seasons you might not be as popular. So what do you do in this case? You need to have an alternative source of income, so better to plan it in advance and be safe when the time comes. Nevertheless, this has been my 5 top best financial decisions that I've ever made, and I hope you relate to them. If you don't, please comment below, and I'm really interested to find your opinions about that. What were your 5 best decisions? And if you have any comments or any ideas for my future videos, also please leave a comment below. Contact me via Instagram, and subscribe for more videos to follow. Don't want to forget that. Please smash the like button to keep the YouTube algorithm working, and I'll see you next time.